delay thing.
You got an echo delay?
Echo delay, yeah. Wow. I haven't broke
Alright,
a
everything is rolling
swisher
now.
up in a long time.
Everything's rolling though, right?
Everything is rolling.
Let me see.
Can't hear myself.
What is up, everybody? It is your boy Lou Martinez, aka Big Chief Burrito, here with episode 3 of the new 2 a.m. Burrito podcast with Kenny Jenkins behind the cameras, behind the audio, helping out and also contributing to all the conversations we're having today. What's up, Kenny?
What's going on, y'all?
Just hanging and banging, you know. So, episode 1, I had sort of said that I wanted to avoid religion and politics as much as possible on the podcast, because I kind of wanted to be something that people could listen to sort of get out of their head a little bit. But this week, with all the shit that's been going on, and that sort of is, you know, California speak for COVID and everything else that was happening, I don't think it was possible. I talked to Kenneth and I said, if we do another podcast and we don't talk about, you know, protesting and rioting. Kenny obviously hasn't done many podcasts because he's opening his sodas during the recording. But if we don't talk about what's going on, then it feels like it's irresponsible. And if we talk only about what's going on, then it feels like it's sort of like, hey, here's my opinion about this, and, you know, making yourself sort of self-important in a way. So, yeah, it took 3 episodes for me to completely disavow the no politics. So, obviously, everybody, and we have a bunch of things that I want to talk about today, including the David Ayer cut of Suicide Squad that might be released, including SpaceX, Space Force, both the show and the actual space launch, and a couple other things that happened in terms of the movies that I was able to view this weekend in my weekend media. But we would be remiss, I guess is the term, or ignorant if we didn't at least talk about the fact that even here in San Diego last night, right now, as we're recording this, there's a curfew in LA that started at 6 o'clock. There were riots and looting and protesting in La Mesa last night. People burned down a library. They broke into banks.
Burned down banks.
They burned down a bank.
2 banks.
We had several friends that were live at protest, and we were watching them last night, and I was like, damn, this dude just walked into a bank at midnight during the protest. And I don't know, I'm a gray area guy when it comes to politics. I don't fully affiliate myself with any political group or protest group or anything. I consider myself somebody who's firmly entrenched in between black and white, good and bad. In terms of the gray area, I actually welcome corruption in some certain circumstances. But the line for me has always been, or is currently, private property and people who, and the, like the videos that came out of people like smashing people's windows on the freeway that were trying to drive by their protests. That shit doesn't fly. I think if you're in your car and you're with your family, you got a kid in the back seat, and somebody rushes up on you and wants you to stop your progress because they're protesting, and they take out a fucking hammer and start busting out your window, you should have every right to get out of the car and fucking put 2 bullets in that person's chest. That's me. I think that if there had been no rioting the first couple of nights in Minnesota, they would have tried to cover up the George Floyd murder. Just the way they tried to cover up the Ahmaud Arbery killing by sort of delaying it and doing some minor charges at the end. Because remember, with in Georgia, the 3 guys that murdered a jogger, that tried to do an illegal stop because they were playing cops. Even though they were former cops, they were still playing cops. The only reason that charges were made in that case was because of the outrage when the video leaked, right? And when they first were talking about this case in Minnesota, they basically said, we need more evidence, we need more video, and everybody was like, well, we saw the guy put a guy's knee on his neck for 9 minutes and murder him, what else do you fucking need? And then they said, well, the autopsy report said there were possible intoxicants and he had previous health conditions. You could have every fucking major health condition. If you die with somebody's knee on your neck, I think that's a contributing factor. But people got, and I think it was the method, because we had the don't breathe with the guy with the chokehold, and then Kaepernick is kneeling, and then literally somebody is being murdered with the act of defiance that was supposed to be the peaceful protest. So people just weren't having it. And the fact, and social media has been gaining popularity, but within several hours the day this came out, my entire timeline was nothing but murder, 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 murder in front of me. I was scrolling and I kept seeing this thing, and I had to get off social media for a couple of days because it was making me cringe and feel like shit. And I sort of needed to regain my thoughts on it. But I don't think if there was no rioting those first couple of days, if everybody would have been like, peaceful protest, let's wait them out, let's see what they decide to do, I think they would have come back with some bullshit like third-degree manslaughter. I don't even know if that's a thing. But like the lowest involuntary manslaughter type charge that they could have done, like slap on the wrist. And I think it would have been very easy for them to then say, oh, let's wait this out. But people were looting. Shit was getting burned to the ground. And they absolutely understood that writing is the voice of the unheard, right? Is that what Martin Luther King said?
Writing, yeah.
And then people say, well, he was nonviolent, but they still killed him. So, I don't know. From my perspective, I think the writing was necessary to get people to realize that we're not fucking joking around with this time. That, that the difference between this and other situations is how in your face, like the other officer was like, hey, this is why you don't do drugs, kid. And then, you know what I mean? It just seemed so unapologetic. And obviously it's like, I felt like, well, if we're going to just sit here and talk about movies again this week, it's going to feel like hollow, So I figured we'd get it out of the way. But obviously, me and you were watching some of it. What hit you the hardest, or what's your perspective about what I was talking about?
Shoot, man. It's been a rough time. I'm with Martin on that. Rioting is the voice of the unheard. I don't know, man. It's necessary, of course. Like, I don't know if you seen my Facebook post earlier. I was like, damn,
like your page, Kenny.
Might as well blow up a McDonald's instead of a fucking Chase Bank.
But they're both corporations. McDonald's sometimes are corporately owned, sometimes they're privately owned.
No, I get you. Franchise versus corporate and all that.
I don't know. It's a thin line.
It is.
I think where it starts to become murky for me is when you take it out of the hands of the people. I guess it's like you can't really mitigate or regulate why somebody is angry, but there are people that, just like during natural disasters, there's people that go out and take advantage of the fact that people flee a hurricane and they fucking go to the houses and steal shit.
This is way different. It's a whole different ball game this time around. Only because, people are fed up, and not to mention, we also have the coronavirus on top of that.
Right.
People are already been in their house for a couple months now, And then all this has been happening while every single day, I'm getting 3, 4 videos of a different Karen or a different Susan calling the cops on somebody that lives in their own apartment. Talking
Or is
about
working
you,
out in their own
you
gym.
don't live here, or you don't work here, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
UPS people and FedEx guys getting harassed. Like,
Bird
come on
watchers.
now.
Bird watchers.
Bird watchers. It doesn't matter. You can call the cops and get shot yourself.
Yeah.
People are fed up. I'm fed up. If my mom was still alive, I'm pretty sure I would have saw her cry just like I saw my dad cry the other day after he saw Floyd get killed, which is to see my dad on live chat while he's recovering from heart transplant surgery crying about something that he just saw. Just me seeing another man cry is hard to begin with, but seeing my dad cry, it's not right.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fucking tough scene. I think you isolated it there, and is that, there wasn't like a game on TV that night to take that off the headlines. There wasn't like people weren't going out to the movies that night to go see, an Adam Sandler comedy or something like that. It was the only thing that you really had. It was because all we've hearing about is COVID, 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 Corona, 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 lockdown, 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 reorganizing, and the protests that we've been hearing about are the people that are protesting. And they're not getting canistered, by the way, and told to stay in their house, and they're walking around with guns because they wanted to go get a haircut.
Yeah.
And they wanted to go fucking be able to go get, 2-for-1 margaritas at Applebee's. When, Applebee's margaritas are fucking delicious, but still, it's besides the point, obviously. But so there was nothing else to distract us from what we've all been entrenched for the last fucking 2 to 3 months. So this shit happens, and there's no way to get it, no way to escape it. There's no way to fucking get around it.
Everything that we've been going through since the birth of America doesn't even start to add up of what's been going on during these protests in all these states. Buildings can burn, whatever businesses, all that can burn. It will not add up to all the injustices and all the death and everything that we've been through this whole entire time. It's not right.
Yeah. And when it starts, like I said, to get murky a little bit for me is when it turns to opportunists that take advantage of the situation. And you got to understand, the world is a place where every major country, whether it be China or Russia or England or powerful nations, they all have, and organizations like the CIA, secret organizations, they all have operatives in the U.S. And for whatever their cultural or political reasoning is, there's going to be people there to agitate the situation. So when it starts to turn into just that, and you can't really tell the difference between the guys that are protesting because they're angry and the people that are out there because they're trying to there's people out there literally trying to promote a race war.
Oh yeah.
The Boogaloos, or whatever the fuck they're called, are out there trying to bring on a race war in this country. Like, that is their ultimate goal. Like, my goal is to win an Oscar. Their goal is to start a race war. Like that South Park episode was like, race war, it's happening.
Oh yeah.
Right? I mean, there's the agitators. And then I've
been seeing a lot of them in the videos.
And then,
people are chasing them down and saying, why are you doing this? We're trying to be peaceful while you're over here trying to start stuff.
And then I saw that, actually, it was my joke, but I was like, because they're like, oh, there's pallets of bricks here. Just like, hey, you're rioting? Have a brick. And I was like, how do you know the protesters didn't, what is it called? What's the thing? Fuck, I messed it up myself. What is that thing called on Warzone?
C4 or
No, when you call in your
loadout?
Yeah. Fuck, that was the joke. I fucked it all up. I was like, how do you know the protesters just didn't call in their loadout? their protest loadout is just a bunch of bricks.
Damn.
I'm sorry. It was a tacky, tasteless joke, and I even made it worse.
Another thing I've been thinking about too, because of the coronavirus, everybody has an excuse to wear a mask and hide their identities, so you can further get away with some stuff that you may not.
It's like a perfect storm, dude.
Yeah.
It's a perfect storm of people being bottled in, angry, seeing fucking murder live on fucking their phones
Every day.
continuously over and over and over. And so that's like the line for me. The line is, I think that the rioting is necessary in order to magnify people's anger and to show them that there is anger out there, and that, you know, this is not something that you can sweep under the rug. And then people saw that it worked, and then, you know, there was some shit that happened in La Mesa, so there's like, fuck it, protest in La Mesa, protest, and, you know, there's always a reason to protest in LA. All the major cities, you know, Philadelphians do not need a reason to riot. You know, they're like, hey, let's riot. They get that riot juice going, and they're fucking about it.
They're everywhere.
Chicago, another powder keg. DC, I think Trump was trying to call out his MAGA people to try, because, hey, isn't it supposed to be MAGA night at the White House? Because there was a shitload of protesters outside, and he got taken to a bunker during the protest. He got whisked away to a bunker.
They were only blocks away.
And they told all White House staff not to come into work tomorrow. So, Monday, which would be Monday. So, I don't know, does this...
I'm sure the Secret Service is sweating it just a little bit. Just a little.
What?
Just because they were so close, the protests.
Oh,
in
yeah.
Washington,
And
they
even
were so
he
close
was,
to the
he was
White
like,
House.
hey, they would have gotten hit by dogs and blah, blah, and I know all the secret weapons, and we're going to go to Mars and whatever other fucking delusional shit he has to say. But, obviously, you know, we're the number one podcast amongst protesters, obviously. So, be safe out there, wear a mask. What is the other advice they had? Switch your phones. Don't put your phones on face recognition. They were jamming up people's cell phone towers so people couldn't stream live.
Which is crazy.
And then there was another thing in Dallas where police set up an app where people could snitch on protesters. And the fucking Korean hackers began flooding it with like K-pop videos and all this other like probably denial of service attack sort of, and they had to shut down the app.
Good.
So, and the thing that's interesting about this is that it spread so many demonstrations across the world, like England, New Zealand. Like there's Black Lives Matter protests happening tons and tons of places.
Yeah. And we also might need to boycott buses again, just because there was I think it was in New York. They decided not to give the protester bus rides.
No, the other thing was in Chicago, they shut down.
Like, how do you know? How do you know if it's a protester or a person in a mask? Like, just trying to get a ride to work or home or whatever.
No, in Chicago, what they did was they shut down public transportation, and then they tweeted out a message to the Chicago official city account saying, "Hey, if you need a ride, take Uber."
You gonna be? Is it gonna be for free?
No, it's like user code riots 2020
Maybe my 1,200 for the
for 10% off your next Uber ride if you use riots 2020. No. All right, so the regain here would be, hey, so I was gonna try to do the joke again. Hey, how do you know those bricks aren't just the protesters' custom loadouts? Warzone reference. No, okay, I fucked the joke up the first time. Yes, sometimes I think there's protesters. There's that whole thing. Killer Mike came out and said, you know, don't burn down your own house. You know, and like I said, I'm a gray area guy, and part of me understands the need for writing and the need for people to visually feel our displeasure. But I also think there's also a time for calm and to sort of not endanger yourselves and your community in that manner. You know, it's a thin line. You know, I sort of lean more towards supporting protesters, but I also understand there's agitators and people that are just shitheads on both sides. You know, and there's people that are going to take the opportunity, and they're doing it for the wrong reasons, which is why I say it's kind of weird to sort of try to judge who's rioting for the right reasons, right? So everybody just stay safe out there. Uh, Come together, and honestly, it comes down to just I don't know. What does it come down to?
Let me add one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
The video I saw of one of these mini protests that I've seen from these states. It was front lines. There's three guys. One kid was 16, one guy was 46, and another guy was 31.
Okay,
31.
another video.
You know what you're talking about? Yeah, the 31-year-old. He was mainly talking to the 46-year-old and trying to get him to understand something. And what really hit me is when he brought up the 16-year-old, and he started to do math. He was like, he's 16, I'm 31, you're 46. In 10 years, you're going to be 26 in the same place we're at right now. This 46-year-old and this 31-year-old. You're going to be in the same place, fighting for the same causes, talking about the same struggles and the same issues that we're talking about now. Because 30 years ago, 60 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, we was talking about the same shit. Same shit's been going on forever. And 20 years from now, 10 years from now, it's going to be happening. The same thing's going to be happening. And that's going to suck if that 16-year-old in 10 years.
Yeah, basically telling them, do shit different than we did.
Yeah.
There's got to be a different way. And I think social media is the biggest reason that this is different because you're seeing, like you saw the thing with the cops there was water and stuff set up for protesters, and they would come by and they were stealing the water and like puncturing holes in it because they didn't want the protesters to have water. And you see like the fucking cops in New York that were literally running people over.
Oh, bro, and the violence that they're pushing people left and right hard, and the people were hitting the back of their heads on the concrete, and
that was the difference. I mean, in the 1960s, the protests, you had these still images, but it was maybe a few photojournalists or people that were brave enough to go out there with a camera, because all they needed to do was catch you, beat your ass, and destroy the film, and it never happened. So the things that happen in the shadow between law enforcement and minorities that have been going on for obviously hundreds of years, social media is now giving us a view.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about it myself. Sorry if I interrupted. If a cop pushed me and kept pushing me 3 feet, 4 feet, and another 5 feet, hard in my chest till you hear that noise, I don't know how I'm gonna react.
No.
I mean, the videos that I've been seeing, sometimes I see the person react and start fighting the cop. But lately, the videos that I'm seeing, I'm so happy those people are not fighting back. They're just getting pushed and just taking it.
Even to the point where there was a guy he was on the floor. They stuck a dog on him.
I saw that one too.
And you could tell that he was trying to fight the dog off, but he felt like if he was like making motions like to kick the dog off, like every time he would try to put his hands, the cop was like, "Ah!"
Yeah.
Like I'm about to go for my gun, but even though they had a dog.
As soon as he was on the floor, he had surrendered. He put his arms behind his back.
And he's gonna say,
and he was ready.
The dog got out of my hand.
He was ready to be cuffed.
Yeah.
And they would not take the dog off his leg, and he was in pain and he was scared. And every time he would move or whatever, the cop would be like, "Don't move, don't move." And I'm like, "Bro, you have him. He's down. He's surrendered. He's ready for you to put the cuffs on him already."
Whoever put that out was like, imagine the amount of fear you have to have not to react as a dog is eating you.
I'm like, you're in excruciating pain. You want me to just stay quiet and not move?
And then there was the other guy where the guy was like, "All right, here, arrest me."
Okay.
And then the cop comes behind him and fucking like, he's like, "All right, I'm gonna practice my karate kicks," and like fucking kicked him in the fucking back. And the guy was like he barely moved. He was like, "What? Why? I'm already right here. Why do you have to come kick me in my back?" And then as soon as he turns around, he's like, "Oh, you're resisting arrest." He gotta had his hands up. He wasn't sufficiently like, I don't know, did you want to get on his knees in 2 seconds? Like, what's the point? And then he tries to fucking do a Street Fighter kick. Literally was like, I'm gonna practice I finally get to practice my click, my kick on a real minority. Imagine that. I'm gonna kick him in his
I can
back.
finally be IP man. Yay!
I'm finally gonna get to kick somebody in the, And you don't want to say that that's all these people want to get in to be a cop is so they can kill a fucking black guy, right? But it is true that the original police were sometimes the old racist. And unfortunately, there's systematic racism that's embedded into a lot of U.S. institutions, and it might just be a couple of people, but the old ones teach the new ones, and some of them believe it. And I think less people do now. But again, I think just the shit that used to happen in the shadows, social media allows to sort of put out there, because everybody. But it is also true that the people that were filming the George Floyd murder, if they all collectively, rush the cop, maybe one of them is dead, but George is still alive. Maybe what is the trade-off there? I mean, I've seen a lot of, hey, if you see me getting killed by the cops, help me, don't record it. So that's the only other step that's left. People that are going to start immediately retaliating against something that they see. But right now, it's all been just, we're recording this or we're going live or something. But if these protests don't solve anything, unfortunately, I think that's the next step that people will take.
I hope that people can organize a lot better, because organization is something that, we've been lacking big time in the black community, to get together and really use our black dollar the way we're supposed to be using it. It's such a powerful tool and we're not using it right. I mean, everything has been intensified because of the pandemic, because of COVID. I think we are. Honestly, I don't want to blame it all on COVID, but things are different because of COVID. Things are on a different, heightened, intensified level because of COVID. And it ties into, what you're talking about, social media and being able to share information so fast and all that. Everybody's indoors. Everybody's on their phones. Everybody's tuned in on TV. So everybody's seeing the same thing at the same time. Everybody's feeling the same thing all at the same time. And we've already been feeling everything and seeing everything and all that on the same time. But like I said, because of COVID, because we're inside, because we're already stressed and depressed and all these other things, because we're indoors 24/7, it's just worse. Our reaction, our actions are a lot worse. And a part of me is almost like, there's no rules. I've been saying, I've been texting in my DMs to people, like, they're asking me questions, and I'm like, hey, I think I've been hearing about Santee and Mission Valley protests today, and people keep hitting me up, and I'm like, I keep saying the same thing, like, the rules are different. Like, it's different. Like, it's just different. So the rule book's out the door, and for me, whatever happens. Just let it keep going. Go with the flow, because the rules are different. So I'm just gonna go with the flow.
Yeah, whatever, like you said, whatever we've been doing has not worked, and it's politics and views in a meme is weird, because it's literally, not that way, We're just protesting. Well, this guy peacefully kneeled and you said it was unpatriotic. Or this guy wore a t-shirt, or this guy did this, and you don't want people to riot, you don't want people to be unpatriotic and take a knee. So how about we just change shit? Right?
Yeah.
And if it keeps going, it keeps going. Like I said, everybody should stay safe, and I guess everybody has what their acceptable levels are. But obviously right now everything's murky, the rules have changed. So, all right. So anyway, we had to get that out of the way, obviously, or else it was going to feel like. So next up, we'll get into some more film stuff.
And I'll try not to bring us back Because I probably will be like, oh yeah, so John Travolta and then Scientology, so connected to that.
It's all Scientology's fault.
Yeah.
All right. We'll take a quick break and we'll be back.